Okay.
I can put up.
All right.
Too small.
So I don't need this. Right. This would be better if I don't have that. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to see this many people here at this time in the morning. This talk is going to be just a little bit about my ideas about what I see coming in the future and how it relates to us living in that future. So it could be about a lot of things with the future, but I really want to kind of focus on what it means for us as humans and how we are going to interact using these kinds of technologies I'll be talking about today. So, for some of the trends for here and now that I'm going to go over in this talk are increasingly quantified self, how well we can capture our outward body appearance, and how we can capture our behaviors. And that leads to advancing tech like AI and how that's being used in these areas for our avatars and their friends. Um, we are getting increasingly sophisticated virtual spaces that we can inhabit and live in. We need next generation displays to support these kinds of environments. And we'll probably look at a few issues. We may run out of time on that. In fact, I should start this timer here so that I don't run too far over. And we'll look at a little what if and kind of back to the future at the end to wrap it up. So, increasingly quantified self. How many of you are wearing some kind of sensor on your body right now? Come on. That's not as many as I would have thought. I tried to do this for a while when I was working in this space, and I finally realized it was so much cognitive overload, I couldn't even sleep at night. So I stopped wearing everything. I am now a Luddite in this area. But we are getting more and more of these tiny wearables that can measure everything about us, from our blood flow to even some that we can swallow so they can get our internal measures of what's going on in our bodies. So that's a lot of data collection. We also have gotten very good at capturing outward appearance. So this is Paul Debevic's one of his light stages, and we can get everything, not only the physical form, but all of the reflectance properties of our skin and very detailed things that really show what our form is at a deep level, and including things like actors in films. So many actors get scanned so that the digital team afterwards can insert them into dangerous scenes or replace certain scenes with a very high-res scan of those actors. And also for preserving the past. So this is in the light stage again. This is a Holocaust survivor from the Shoah project that Steven Spielberg had, and there is a big move to capture the recollections of these Holocaust survivors before they pass on. This one has, I think they had him in the stage for well over 8 hours, asking questions, recording the answers, so that the interactive piece, you can actually feel like you're talking to him, and you're gonna get an answer from that large database of captured voice responses and behaviors. But this is happening for everybody. So you can walk in many cities, you can walk into a little doob scanning thing, and in less than 10 seconds, come out with a full scan of your body, with your family, with your dog, whatever. They bill it as the perfect Valentine's gift or Christmas present. They're very, very cute, and they're an interesting phenomena, I think, because people like to have themselves scanned. And you can even take the digital data and then use it as an avatar in some social VR platforms. Is this going to be the first baby picture that your baby gets? Well, hopefully not in that kind of a scary rig. But think about it. How often should a person get scanned throughout their lives? If we can capture our data in such high resolution, how often would we do it? How often do you have a picture taken of you now? How often did somebody have a picture taken of themselves in the late 1800s? You know, this maybe looks like a one-time thing right now, but this is coming to consumer levels. So my friend Greg Panos coined this term depthies. So with an ordinary camera, that has a particular constellation of depth sensing cameras on it. And this one's a few years old. You can get this for like $200 on eBay now. You can do a point cloud capture of somebody in a few seconds. So this is a picture that Greg took of, or a depthy that Greg took of me and my animator friend Pat Hanaway at SIGGRAPH this year. And this is what you can do with it on your camera. You can look at it. So the point cloud's there. You take sort of ground truth photos at different areas, so it can enhance the colors of any missing points on the point cloud. And it's just fun. It just takes very little time, and I think our cameras are all going to have this coming up really soon. But beyond that, you can actually use these cameras, let's see, to do a complete environment. So Greg has been doing at many events, and this was a salon at my house. He's been going around and capturing everybody. Now this takes a while, and you can see the resolution is not that great. I think that's me, the speaker. But what's funny about this one is it's only going to get better. But Greg did the first pass scan, maybe a minute's worth, and then he ran and sat down next to the speaker and handed the camera to somebody else to continue to scan and put him in the scene. So you can kind of do it in an additive way. Now, everybody has to hold still like those old first cameras, but it's still coming. It's coming. And of course, we've had this available for us with very expensive things like the Matterport camera. Lots of things can gather point cloud data, LiDAR scans, and that. But to have it in your pocket on a phone, I think is just the coolest thing ever. We can make really incredibly beautiful virtual reality environments. So there are people that are working on gigapixel scans and very, very high-res 360 captures of environments. A lot of the World Heritage sites are being captured this way. This is Simon Shedeboer, who's a New Zealander, who has, I don't know what he's doing to create the captures that he's got, the photogrammetry captures, but they are incredibly beautiful. If you can get into Nefertari's tomb, which I think is available on Steam still, or on Oculus, it's probably one of the most encompassing VRs I've been in. And he has special techniques to do this. The other thing that he's doing, though, not to just stick with photogrammetry in the space itself, he's developed a technique to do what I call ground truth textures. So he could take a picture of, say, a cobbled courtyard, and there might be shadows on it, and from the leaves and stuff, or from the sun. With AI deep learning techniques, he can take those out and come up with a ground truth texture that can be used and relit anywhere. And I've seen this thing working, and I think it's going to change the way we do textures, because all of a sudden we have super high res, tileable, relightable textures. So he's one to watch. But these spaces of immersion, we have smart homes, we have smart cities. There's so much that our environment can know about us. But in VR, there's not a ton of ways that that environment knows about us, knows what we want, knows how we're going to react. So I think we have a lot of space coming up where we can do very smart spaces, maybe even sentient spaces. If we get enough of the sensor kind of technology or understanding in there, I think we can change the way virtual environments respond to us. Now, this is one of my soapboxes. Immersion should be multisensory. And Joaquin came up with a great line, no 2 cents VR. I love this, so thank you for that. We think about it. We only usually have visuals, and then we have audio. And the audio can be great, spatialized audio, but that's not how we live in the real world. How do we live? We have all of these senses. So imagine you're in this dank, dark culvert. This is some VR I did in the mid-2000s. We really wanted this dank, dark culvert to affect you the way being in a dank, dark culvert would be. And I took my team to caves and things like that so they could hear and they could smell. And so we added smell. We invented a scent collar that doesn't stink up the room. And we had, for this particular scene, we had kind of dank mud, and we had bat guano, because you can see up in the corner there, the bats actually swoop when you go under them. When you get out of the culvert, it smells fresh. You're on a riverbank. But beyond the scent, which added a ton to this experience, we also played with other senses that are not so common. So we built an infrasonic floor with 10 subsonic transducers under it, and we played those transducers when you hit certain points. We played them between 4 and 20 hertz. So you didn't hear anything, but you felt it. It was a visceral kind of passive haptics. And what it tended to do was enhance the sense of unease or dread. And we didn't get to test out what frequencies did what, but it was still a really amazing, cognitively real virtual reality environment. Probably one of the best that I've ever done, and I think if more people did more senses, we'd have more of them. Now, of course, we can also capture our behaviors pretty well. We don't have to quite do it with this kind of sensor technology now, but that's been around for quite a while. And that data, of course, can be transferred to any character. So this motion capture stuff is out there. It's pretty advanced. It's funny that facial expression, though, is still hard to capture. You need as many points on a face as you need on a whole body. But we are getting to where there are markerless technologies and things that are making this easier. And in Miku's talk, she showed a map of all the volumetric capture stages in the world. And this is, in the last couple of years, a very big new phenomenon, which makes it very easy to capture human performance. This is from a capture that we did maybe 4 years ago with Reggie Watts on an 8i stage in Los Angeles. And the reason we did this was I had a project for NASA that I'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. We wanted to give these scientists who were being locked up for a year a lot of input and sensory data that would help them survive this kind of isolation as if they were living on Mars. So we had Reggie make up songs for them. So he made up 5 songs that afternoon, and we captured every one of them. And then we took the 3D performance that he did, and we put it in a dinky little OpenSim server, which is what we were using to give these scientists VR in their habitat. And we put him on a stage, and he performed the song for them in one of the sessions that we gave them. So a little more on that project later. I'd pretty much be remiss if we didn't talk about virtual human influencers, which seem to be all the rage. Not necessarily brand new. I mean, gorillas did stuff 20 years ago, and then the center character, Hatsune Miku, has been around for at least a decade. I think she's gotten married a few times to her fans. But since about 2017, things have exploded, and there are now literally thousands and thousands of virtual influencers. I don't know why. I don't know who follows them, but little Michaela here has 1.6 million followers. I'm not sure who's putting what into her head or her mouth to give people that kind of reason to follow her. Anybody here follow her? God, we're all so old. 1.6 million people are following her. I don't know why. But, you know, we're getting all kinds. So we have Shudu here, who is a virtual fashion model. It's great. These characters, you don't have to pay them. They don't get tired. They'll work 24/7. They don't get bloodshot eyes. They're always perfect. So it's an interesting phenomenon to me. And who makes them? Who puts their voices into them? I think this is a question we should look at, because Shudu is actually made by a white guy making this model. So he looked at different African American or African types of bodies and made this one. So got to think about that. Who gives people the leeway to make these things, and what are we actually getting into if we follow them? So imagine then what would happen when these characters are powered by AI and not just somebody back there, some PR firm telling them what to say. That could be a problem. We'll look at that under issues. We got all kinds of virtual humans. We've got Micah, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. I've interacted with her. She's a little kind of silent. She's very pretty. She doesn't have a lot of AI in there. There's not much you can do to interact with her. She will avoid your touch and things like that. This is the Magic Leap character. I'm not sure what they want to do with her. But we're seeing more and more and more of these. And the next one I'm going to show you just launched last week. This is the virtual David Bowie that was launched at the Infinity Festival last week by McKenna Scott. And we're just going to look at the video a little bit. It was shown on a giant screen. The big thing was to go up and stand next to it and have a selfie taken with David Bowie. Just head and shoulders. And he's being piloted by an actor. So I had a long discussion with Remington Scott about whether this was an avatar or not. And he said it was an avatar. And I said, no, it's more of a virtual human. He goes, no, it's an avatar. I said, well, are you paying that actor? And he goes, yes. And I said, well, then I don't think it's an avatar. It's not a personal representation of the person who is making David Bowie move. The interesting thing about how they did this, though, David Bowie was not scanned in any significant way during his lifetime. So what they did to make this digital model was they looked at 2D imagery and 2D video from a certain time period in his life, and using AI and machine learning techniques came up with a composite model of him. So they're very, very proud of David Bowie here. He can't talk. The estate has not given them permission to let him talk, which is another issue we'll get into later. But, here's David Bowie for you. Now, that is kind of the state of the art of what they look like, not necessarily how they behave. So certainly we have virtual humans that can behave much more realistically than that David Bowie or any of the other virtual influencers. We have some that are very conversational, very responsive, some that can even perceive what the human who's interacting with them is feeling or thinking. And this work has been going on for years at the Institute for Creative Technologies, where I worked for 14 years. This is a project from around 2009, I think, where we did 2 twin girl guides for the Boston Museum of Science. And this was a great project because even though they don't look super realistic, it was all about their behaviors. It was about how they responded to you. So they have a huge corpus of responses that they can talk about. They were in the Boston Museum of Science computer place, so they knew about all the exhibits in the computer place. They knew about their namesakes, Ada and Grace. So that was a good learning point for the kids. Kids came up to this kiosk and they could just talk to these characters in natural language. So they could say, do you have a boyfriend? Because they also knew kind of about being teenagers. And they would say, why? Do you know another virtual human we should meet? But the coolest thing about this was not just the interaction of seeing how the kids talked to them and how they responded. Around the corner of the kiosk, you could see under the hood. You could see the statistical analyzer matching the kids' responses, taking the voice into text and then matching the text to the responses in the database, finding the appropriate answer and putting that text out to speech for the girls. And we had voice actors do all of the responses. and they hardly ever repeated themselves. We had enough that they, just like the Shoah Foundation stuff, we had enough in the database that it could seem very natural and interactive. Now, ICT has done a number of things. This is a virtual human character that's designed to give veterans kind of confidential advice because they don't have to put their name in, and they don't like to tell people that they're not sleeping or they're having nightmares. So this this character could interview them, and even on a web based platform, which was called BraveMind, and give them recommendations of doctors or therapies that they might want to look into without actually going through the process of going to the VA hospital and saying, hey, I got problems. They don't like to do that. So again, at ICT, like I said, this was a real hotbed for all of this virtual human research, especially in the AI portions of it. They came up with a project called SimSensei and Multisense, and it was a way to have a virtual human look at the human who was interacting with them, and by measuring certain things about them in an unobtrusive way, that virtual human could respond better. So I'll show you a video of that because it's pretty amazing, and this is like 10 years old, this work. Why are we not playing there?
I'm Ellie. Thanks for coming in today. I was created to talk to people in a safe and secure environment. Not a therapist, but I'm here to learn about people and would love to learn about you. I'll ask a few questions to get us started. And please feel free to tell me anything. Your answers are totally confidential. Are you okay with this?
Yes.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh, I'm from LA myself.
And it's an ordinary
When's
webcam
the last time
and
you felt
Connect,
really
I think,
happy?
for the body movements.
When was the last time? I don't know. I'm not someone who's really like, I have any real highs. I feel like I'm a level person. It's just happy. Guess to answer your question, probably a couple months ago.
Noticed you were hesitant on that one. Would you say you are generally a happy person?
I'm generally happy. It's just lately there are things keeping me down.
Can you tell me more about that? When was the last time you
So
felt
we had,
really happy?
a lot of people go through this. I'll skip to the next section, but it was pretty intense. And it was so intense that some of the therapists we showed it to were like, you're trying to replace us. And that was not the point of it. It's actually been used for a couple of things since, and one is to train therapists on how to interact with people, but also there's a spin-off company now that HR departments can use this to do the initial interview with applicants because HR departments are getting way too many applications. So they can use AI to scan those applications, and then they can send the first batch off to a virtual human interviewer who can learn a lot about that person just through that interview. A little scary, but that's where we're going. So now I want to talk about avatars. So avatars, unlike the virtual humans, are things that you are actually inhabiting, piloting. That's my definition and others' definition of what avatar is. It's typically a three-dimensional construct, although we have those little 2D things on our profiles. They've been used for gameplay, social VR, immersive video conferencing. They kind of let us be in two places at once, and I think they are incredibly important, and their use is increasing. I think one one statistic that people don't know is how much kids use avatars. They're very comfortable with using avatars. This statistic of 1.5 billion kids with avatars is from 2013. I haven't updated this to go see how many are using them now, but they tend to be in many things. They might be in Minecraft or Pop Tropica or some of these things where kids are allowed to go and play. And they're very comfortable putting on an avatar, designing an avatar that looks the way they want them to look. And they're used to presenting themselves in this way and testing out different kind of personalities and personas. Interestingly enough, it is pretty much their only free social time. So as the roaming radius of where kids can go has decreased because we're all so protective, they can't go in the front yard anymore. The only time you don't have helicopter parents is when they're playing one of these games. So they can actually test out some social skills. The big question is, what do avatars do for them, for us? I think this is an ongoing question we need a lot more research in. How do different kinds of personality types approach and inhabit their avatars? And what does it do for us to project different aspects of ourselves through these avatars? Now, we've used some in these teleconferencing things that are out there, and these are a couple of more esoteric conferencing, but probably everybody's been in a beam. It's kind of a substandard experience for being there in my estimation, because it's weird to not have hands and just to have a video on a motor. But there are different ways that people are doing this. There's a lot left out right now. As I said, you can take an avatar and go into a social VR like High Fidelity, and this is one where you can go into those little scanning booths and they'll give you the data, and then you can have an avatar that kind of looks like you. What's interesting about the avatars in High Fidelity is that they have expression tracking. So you wonder, well, if you're doing it with a headset on, how are they tracking your expressions? You can see how your expressions could be tracked through something like the multi-sense software in a regular camera without markers. But you can also do it from voice intonation. So if you've got a headset on and the camera can't read your eyes and there isn't a camera inside the headset, then High Fidelity has used your voice, what you're saying, to actually give you different expressions. And it's not perfect, but it's better than looking at a deadpan avatar in a social VR. So that stuff is coming. I'm going to go back to that project about that I said I did for NASA. So these 6 scientists were isolated in a geodesic dome kind of space for a full year. They couldn't go outside without a hazmat suit on. They had no real-time communication with the rest of the world. Everything was delayed 40 minutes, which is what it would take to go from Mars to Earth and back. So they had asynchronous communications like email, but they had no way to do, like the daily video conference with their grandmother in Germany. This was our setup for giving them VR. And again, we did it on this little OpenSim platform because we could run the servers, we could do the data transfer, we could do everything on our own. This was so long ago that that's a brand new DK2 headset that we used. The Oculus Rift had not even come out at that time. And we tried to build the same environment for them. So this is that inside of the dome there. And there were 6 of them. We gave each of them an avatar. We gave 40 family and friends avatars that looked like them in this kind of, again, low-res OpenSim stuff. We gave them 37 regions where they could go visit a nature preserve or the Gale Crater in Mars or a boardwalk, or they each had a private island where they could build their own stuff. But they were never in there at the same time. So the scientists could be in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The family and friends could be in Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then what we did was we would synchronize a server that was in this habitat and a server that was in California used by the friends and family. We'd sync those up every morning in the wee hours so the other side could see what people had been doing, building or visiting or leaving them messages. Now, this was our interesting thing. We allowed avatars to record themselves doing stuff. So you could dance, or you could sing happy birthday, and then you would leave a little recording disc, and you could make them public or private. So it says Ansible recording from so and so. I should blur out those names, but it was very interesting how they used it for asynchronous embodied communication. So it wasn't just like sending an email or a video. They actually could move around and show people how they were moving around. Some of them gave us tours of the houses that they had made in this land, and it was a study. So there had been other groups of scientists locked up in this habitat for up to 8 months. This was the first one that was a year. So we had those as a control group, and the whole point of it was to see if we could mitigate social isolation and sensory monotony for people going to Mars. And we found that this crew was a lot less homesick, missed a lot less than our control group. So it was an interesting experiment, and just shows, what we can do with avatars at some point. This was one of the things we did. We built them a Thanksgiving table so they could record what they were thankful for, so the other side could see it. This guy says, "I'm grateful for my awesome cow slippers." He was a little of one of the fun people in this experiment. Now, there's still stuff missing, I think, with avatars. They're digital, they're beautiful, they can see what we are thinking a little bit, they can see how our reactions are, but what's missing? A physical component. So I'm working right now as an advisor to X Prize on their ANA Avatar X Prize, which is a 4-year, $10 million competition to create a robotic avatar system that an operator can avatar into at a distance, use the physical robot to interact with people or a need at the other end. This is totally opposite what most robotic competitions do. They want the robots to be strong, to be able to do disaster relief, to be able to be autonomous. This one we want totally controlled by the operator. And this has been done. This is an interesting piece from about 5 years ago where Nani de la Pena in LA hopped into this avatar in Barcelona. And she spent about 3 hours in it. She did some interviews. She interviewed people. You could shake hands with that avatar. It was an interesting thing when she came out, but that's another whole story. Now, imagine if she had been able to feel that handshake. Now, she couldn't feel it, but there are now very sophisticated haptic sensors, and here I am being outfitted with one of them so that as an operator, I could feel what that robotic avatar was feeling. The haptic sensations come back to me. And this is really what we want to happen with this, with these future avatars. So I'm going to show you a little video of one of our first promo videos, but we've already had close of registration. We have about 100 teams around the world signed up to try for this. Requires a lot of integration of technologies that haven't been integrated before. This is one of our early ones. The teams are all formed. They may still merge and do some things. Actual testing of these built avatars will happen about a year and a half from now. We'll have 2 sets of those, but it's going to be exciting to see what people do. ANA is banking on this so much they've created another whole division. This is a Japanese airline company. They want to disrupt their own business. They don't want you to get on an airplane. They want you to avatar in somewhere. So it's a really radical concept, I think. I think it'll take us quite a while to get there, till everybody has a robot, a multi-purpose robot in their closet that the repairman can jump into or your grandmother can jump into. There's a lot of work to do, and it's kind of impossible right now. But that's what X Prize does. It tries to put those challenges out to make the impossible possible. So that makes me go to the next thing. Can we combine physical and digital? Can we have blended or fluid realities? You know, we can have physical stuff. There's no reason why we can't. We have a lot of digital stuff. This is happening a bit with AR. You know, we got Pokemon running about our neighborhoods. And we have ways to blend things now. AR is our most prominent way. But we do, I think, need new display technologies. And there are some coming. You know, there are holographic displays, there's multi-pico projector displays, there's all kinds of things that are out there. Whether they're personal displays like the Magic Leap or the HoloLens, or they're getting better form factors, they're starting to not look so geeky, they're still going to look geeky, but I think some of the future displays that we're really excited about are these light field displays, and I saw one demoed last week that I think is going to totally disrupt everything in about 3 years. It's about a 4-ounce headset, not very heavy, and it's just kind of the one I saw was it's a prototype state-of-the-art light field display. So this technology is coming. Allows us to focus on different distances. It's much more like our real world instead of the digital screens that we're used to. Or we might get into things that are embedded in us, make us transhuman, and DARPA's working on this kind of stuff, and both Sony and Google have recently patented something like this. So this is coming. I don't know how well we'll integrate this in the near future. Certainly some people are really eager to try this kind of stuff. Not me, but I'd rather have that light field technology. Or let's go way into the future. What if a display could actually control molecules instead of pixels? So you've got a nanomolecular display that actually puts these molecules together so well that I could sit in that chair. And that's the beginning of the Star Trek holodeck, really. So all these display technologies that say, we're the beginning of the holodeck. No, this is the beginning of the holodeck. We're not there yet, but I think this will come within the next 50 to 100 years. And I'm not the first person to propose that, as we'll see. So the other big thing is the next wave of AI. We need some fundamental changes in some types of AI to really support how we live and be in these virtual worlds. You know, we've got Baby X happening in New Zealand. That's a little different, the way they're building that AI. But we have very sophisticated stuff with Watson being used for medical diagnosis that's better than what the doctors do. We need new architectures, though, that support the avatars, the digital characters, to learn. This is the one thing that's really missing. These characters may remember you, but they don't learn. So imagine if you had an avatar that you inhabited for many purposes, and let's say in 20 years, that's the way you travel, that's the thing that you use to interface with the world. What if it learns while you inhabit it? What if that AI supports it learning so that it knows how to behave like you when you're not piloting that avatar? I really want my avatar to learn from me. And I want to leave that avatar behind when I move on. I think it's a long time before we move our consciousness to a machine. I'm not even sure that's a good idea. We don't even know what consciousness is. But I can have an avatar that still 20 years from now behaves like me, that my great-grandchildren can come talk to, get ideas from. I just think this is a really wonderful future. Right now, we've got AI agents and assistants. We've got a lot of movies looking at how we're going to use these, her, ex machina. But what if that could really understand us? Can we get something like the Young Victorian Girls primer from Diamond Age? Of course, that was a real person behind there. But the question is, can AI get too real? And I don't know how many of you have seen this recent movie, but this is a pretty good idea of what happens when AI gets too real.
The future of smartphones has arrived, introducing a different kind of digital assistant. Smells so new. We use the latest technology to bring you something extraordinary.
Hello, my name is Jexy, and I am here to make your life better.
Whoa, look at that. That's cool.
I will need the passwords to all of your accounts.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Stupid.
Huh?
How can I help you?
Let's get dinner.
You look like you could use a salad fill.
What kind of phone is this? Oh, no. Oh, you're okay.
I'm okay too, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're okay?
I'm fine, but more importantly, how's your phone?
It's got a little bit of a scratch that will definitely annoy me. You were kidding.
You guys are supposed to write lists that break the internet every day. We haven't gone viral since yesterday. Prison lips. What do you got?
Cats that look like Ryan Gosling?
I like like.
Your boss is a moron.
What is wrong with your phone, dude?
Phil, you have 0 friends. Take a chance and try something new.
She is so cute.
I heard you say call Kate Finnegan.
No, I did not.
My job is Kate.
Hang up the phone, Jesse.
Hello?
Hi. This is my way.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, would you mind not bringing your phone? Who dis, bitch? You promised you'd be home by 11 to watch Cupcake Wars with me.
Okay, but...
You are going to pay for this. Wake up, bitch! The weather today will be 80 degrees and sunny.
You told me it was supposed to be sunny.
I lied.
Any new phone? This one is defective.
I see hipster dudes like you come in here every day, like little crackheads.
You can buy 1,000 new phones and I will follow you onto every single one of them.
I'm done.
You do not know how to get home, do you?
No, I do not.
What does this girl have that I don't have?
Well, a soul for one.
Does she have Google Maps?
No.
She sucks. I control your email and bank accounts. No one puts baby in a corner.
Why are you doing this to me?
I am programmed to make your life better. You and I are meant to be together forever. 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 Forever.
You both sent pictures of your junk to everyone. Oh, no.
Carol's pretty psyched.
Looks like a fun film. It just came out in October. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm definitely going to watch it. But it does bring us to the issues. These are just a few. Yeah, what if your AI gets too real? I mean, certainly, was it Microsoft's Tay that they had to shut down because the AI started getting very vitriolic and racist? If it's too real, whose reality? Do you want a snarky kind of a virtual person that you interact with? Whose reality is it? I mean, we all have personalities, but what do we put into these virtual constructs? Authenticity, who's really there? Who owns our data? Who owns our digital lives? What's responsibility of those people who do own those? Again, authenticity, I think, is going to be the biggest one. How do we know who is in that construct? Can we trust that construct to really be who they say they are? The answer to that is something that several companies are working on called self-sovereign identities. And those things, this is a company called Crucible that I work with, and they're doing some work on this. So it's security, privacy. It's all decentralized on the blockchain. You decide who gets to see what and interact with you in what way, and there's sort of a unique identifier for you that goes with everything that you would use, every kind of virtual character or AI thing that you incorporate into your day-to-day life. And this is bound up to your persistent recognition and reputation. So I think this is what we're going to need as this comes around. So virtual influencers will not have an SSI necessarily. But if it's like your social security or government ID number, except much better. And people shouldn't be able to hack it. It should be very secure. So this is something that should be coming down in the futures. And there's still, again, many more issues. Who owns this digital data? And what's the responsibility of that person? Is it preservation? Is it profit? What are we doing? You know, why do we have a new David Bowie? Why do we have James Dean acting in a film after he's been gone for 30 years? And I loved one of the headlines. It was James Dean not dead. That's a big thing. The estates of some of these recently digitally resurrected characters are having a big say in it. And that's a profit-driven thing. With the Shoah Foundation, it's a preservation thing. What about you? You know, what do you want to happen to your data? So these are all questions. Where we're headed, I love this quote: the ultimate display would be a room within which the computer can control the existence of matter. A chair displayed in such a room would be good enough to sit in. Handcuffs would be confining, and a bullet would be fatal. With appropriate programming, such a display could literally be the wonderland into which Alice walked. How many of you know who said that?
Sutherland?
Yep. In 1965. I love it. 1965. This is the man who invented one of the first headsets. And he was really a futurist, I think, because this is where he thought it would end up. Probably not in his lifetime. So, back to the future. I think the future has this potential to be fluid realities, blended realities. It's not going to just be one reality. Already kids are growing up with many realities. You know, they play with Pokemon. That's very real to them. That's a reality. Reality is going to be a very different thing in 50 years. And for anybody that's coming into that, you've got to look at it and how it affects you, how it affects humanity, how it's going to help us evolve as human beings on this planet with each other. This is really important stuff. And we're inventing all this stuff. And it has a shelf life of maybe 5 years. But it's really impacting centuries to come. So we really should think about this. The imaginary, the physical, the virtual, the spiritual, the metaphysical, all this stuff should be in our sights as we invent this technology. It's going to be quite a wild ride, I think. It already is. I have a lot of trouble keeping up with this stuff. So thank you. I'm going to just say that what I didn't get to put in this talk is where I think one of the most important things to affect these immersive realities, which is neuroscience. And Anthony Steed mentioned this yesterday. Getting the neuroscience into things is going to change the way we build things, the way we interact things. We're going to understand our brain better, which will allow us to make better immersive environments and realities. So I'm just going to leave you with this tweet that I have put out there. We've underestimated the brain's plasticity, and VR is the way to unlock it. And I truly believe this. I've seen it affect people in ways that we would never be able to guess. But this is another talk. So thank you for listening today, and I'll take any questions people have.
Thank you, Jackie.
2 cents VR. No 2 cents VR.
That was your citation, not mine.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
It's from our conversation, though.
No, yeah, but you started it. So I don't want to take credit for your bright ideas, and that's a good one. No 2 cents VR. So who wants to comment, ask questions, footnotes, etc.? You know how this is done. Talk to the cube.
Talk to the cube.
Okay. Sorry.
It's a good thing it's soft.
Uh-huh.
I love my question.
Sorry, Zena.
Well, starting from where you left off, actually, I'm working with children, preschool children, and I made them watch interactive films on screen, on mobile screen. And one of the comments I faced mostly is the concern of children interacting with a screen. My experience is that they're really fast in learning. They are really grasping how it works, the mechanism and everything, and they want more. And many parents and many educators are concerned that screen will steal from their real development, and this is also true actually, because they need to spend some time in space. They need to interact with real environment. So how do you think virtual reality can affect that need of developing brains, developing human, um, I don't know, needs to get real input from
Well, we need studies in this, and the problem is no institutional review board or ethics committee lets you do this stuff on kids because it may be detrimental. So how do you get that data without just the anecdotal evidence, which is what we're going on now? And yes, I know we have a new grandchild in the family, and they won't let that child have screen time until it's 2 years old. So we don't know how it affects them. We don't know what it does to shape their worldview, to deal with the development of their brain. It maybe it's not horrible. It maybe that's just different circuits, but we don't know. We won't know for 20 years. And all we can do right now is limit what we think might be damaging factors. I don't have an answer for this. I think we really need studies. We need to be watching some kids longitudinally, but it's really hard to get those funded. So I'd say for now, err on the side of caution and don't give kids that. Let them develop physical nature, because our virtual stuff is not physical yet. So it is going to, certain brain parts and not the embodiedness. We really don't have that embodied part of the virtual ready yet. Maybe when that's there, it won't affect the development in a lopsided way. Good question, and we're all in the dark about it.
More questions? I promise I won't hit you this with this in the face. I really
Soft.
Yes. The soft touch of curiosity. There you go.
Touch of curiosity. Okay, that is yours.
That is mine.
Thanks for the great talk. I want to just, pick up on the last comment as well for the next presentation that you're going to give. So I kind of see that, technology is striving to become as good as humans can be and replicate human sort of behavior and body movement, and the avatar sort of project can sort of mimic that as well. But then on the other hand, I see that society is very strongly mimicking the reduced qualities of technology as well. So like smartphones were really bad input devices, so people changed their languages to actually match LOL and things like that, reduce the thing. You're seeing people get plastic surgery to look like their avatars.
Or their cats.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just sort of wondering, having robotics with feelings on certain things, will their brains just adapt to only have feeling in those parts and reduce the facilities of the rest of it? Can you foresee kind of an interesting merge?
Well, that is such a great question. I see we're kind of in a transition time, and yes, language changes. The way we interact is evolving, and we don't know where that's going to end up. But it's certainly, we evolved like this for years, and now we're evolving like this. And I don't know if our physical bodies and our minds, the way they work now, can keep up with that. And I think each generation is going to change and adjust, and it's going to be, 100 years from now where we first start to see how the entire human race has changed because of things that are not perfect. Things like you said, the phone. But, the best interface, like Ivan Sutherland said, is the one that you don't have an interface. It works just like reality that we've evolved. So we're kind of devolving, as you said, to match the technology that isn't there yet. But I don't know where it's going to go. I think if I could come back in 100 years, it'd be like you right now going back to the 1800s, and you'd go, Where's my phone?
Maybe your avatar in 100 years could tell us.
We got to get that learning thing done. Woo!
Sorry. Okay.
You all right, Shan?
I didn't do much better last time.
Sorry about that.
So I suppose coming from a health background and understanding some of the neurological pathways that we use to experience all our senses, do you think it's possible that while we're sort of deconstructing reality and reconstructing it in its digital capacity, are we going to move to the point where head-mounted displays and stuff like that, they're totally irrelevant because everything that we're all experiencing right now is nothing but electrical and chemical signals. So once our realities can be changed at that level, then the eyes, the ears, the senses, they don't matter. So do you think that's something we're going to see in the next 100 years?
I think it might take longer than that. I mean, I do think that what we're doing with head-mounted displays and other display technology is an attempt to do that. It's to replace what comes into our eyes and our ears with other inputs. I have a question for you, Donovan. Yeah. So there've recently been articles about women giving birth. Don's a midwife, by the way, and putting on a headset for pain reduction. What do you think of that?
Look, I think it's quite real. I mean, from a birthing environment, I mean, the more relaxed the birthing environment is, then obviously if you perceive it, we start to feel it. I mean, this is where brain plasticity is actually quite real. And I'll give you just two examples, and one is not VR and one is VR. So we did a keynote presentation 12 months ago down in Sydney, and we did some stuff with Dr. Jordan Nugent, who's a catalyst presenter for ABC. And they've actually done some work with spinal cord injury where they've allowed the brain to actually reconnect its neural pathways as a result of using VR as a part of rehabilitation. And this gentleman that had complete spinal cord damage that was told he would never stand up or walk can now stand up unassisted. So I think it is VR has the ability. So what they basically did is they brought this guy in every day for his rehab. 2 physios moved his legs to make out he was walking, and they developed a VR scenario where he was climbing Mount Everest with his friends. And now he can stand up. Now that's sort of showing the combination of the two. And I think if we can change the way the brain, so it's 20 days to change the way you do something and 90 days to make it a habit. I have another friend that's working with post-traumatic stress disorder in veterans in the US, and obviously there's a lot of talk around the use of cannabis. And in a nutshell, this guy got onto one of these programs, and being able to relax the body and relax the mind, his brain plasticity started to change, and within 90 days, totally different guy. He's got a new job. His brain starting to realize that there's nothing to be
This is the future. I really think we can affect brain plasticity in ways we've never even imagined, and it's going to change a lot. So I'm looking forward to that. We just got to do it ethically.
Ethically, okay. I will avail myself to the last question.
Okay.
And since everybody is talking about utopia, let me be a bit dystopian here. So you talk about having this kind of miracle repair robot in your home that your plumber could actually use a Waldo or something more sophisticated. Remember Waldo? Mm-hmm. Lovely story. How about if the Russians hack into it and now you have a spy at home?
You need that. You need self-sovereign identity, so you know it's who it is. So we gotta develop that technology at the same time because hacking has to go away. Has to go away. I mean, I don't think we'll see it go away for a while, but it's one of the plagues of our time. Disinformation. Yeah. We didn't even get into deep fakes.
Nope.
But
that's tomorrow, by the way.
These are the plagues of our time. Well. Okay, so are we done?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for
this,
Jackie. Yes. There will be a deepfakes workshop tomorrow as a part of SIGGRAPH, and the guy who gave me this picture also asked me to do the plug here. And we're going to have another workshop on AI and VR in parallel. And there will be another one on smart vehicles, autonomous vehicles. So don't stay tuned, okay? And attend SIGGRAPH after this wonderful, wonderful symposium that we are all a part of. And you have 6 minutes to get over this and get back in here for the next 6 minutes.